Well, let's talk further then about that raid in Sandhurst today. Bring in the Executive Director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Neeshan Balton. Neeshan, always good to have you on the SABC News. So I suppose what makes these proceeds, these alleged proceeds of crime, more offensive or even appalling is the fact that it was just excessive greed, like greed on a grand scale, basically, when you look at what was seized during the operation today.
No, thank you very much. And keep in mind that this is only 50% of the dockets that have been analyzed thus far. If you look at the SIU report, they talk about there being almost 1,800 procurement bundles, and they've only analyzed 900 of that in terms of what they call the Maumela syndicate. So that amount is likely to increase hugely by the time that the SIU investigation is completed.
And on the Maumela syndicate, I mean, so far we only know of 3. 2 have been named. There's one that is yet to be named due to the sensitive level of the investigation. So the raids are a huge step forward. But how much do they count in terms of justice, and when the perpetrators, for instance, aren't necessarily convicts sitting in a prison cell tonight?
However, it is a start. And it is a positive start, and I think we must acknowledge that. We must also acknowledge that the SIU released the interim report last week, and that very soon after the release, this action is taking place. But we have precedents where you have assets that have been seized, only to have the cases lost in court due to all kinds of either weak preparations by the prosecutors, or for whatever reasons the cases get lost, and that nullifies all of the actions ultimately. So we hope that this is not going to be the end result. However, I think we must take confidence from the actions of the SIU and the speed at which this has been done after the release of the report.
And why, Neeshan, I wonder if you agree, does the SIU seem to be moving at faster speed than some of the other law enforcement agencies in cracking down on people who are accused of involvement in corruption? Again, I make the example, for example, in the lag, as far as actual convictions are concerned, which is where the NPA, for instance, has been heavily criticized over the years.
Well, the SIU, is essentially the cases that they take on is not one that you can walk into the police station and report to them. So these are ones that require proclamations, and therefore it allows them to take on the cases that they think they are capable of winning on. Secondly, they seem to have a team of people that are highly skilled and motivated. And I think lastly is the leadership of Advocate Andy Motibi, who's just the kind of leader that seems to be dedicated, seems to have the wherewithal to do the job, and the humility that is required for this particular post. All of which then enables him to draw on the goodwill of a range of people beyond the SIU who come forward with information because they have a sense of belief in the SIU. I can't say the same for the other law enforcement agencies.
And we wouldn't be here. It's always worth reflecting whenever we talk about, especially investigations related to the looting of funds meant for the Department of Health and Tembisa Hospital, without the work done by a brave whistleblower, Babita Diokran, who paid the ultimate price, was basically assassinated for raising these very issues. How much closer then do operations like what we saw done by the SIU today bring us in real terms, in terms of justice for her and honoring her sacrifice?
I think it's incredibly painful when you look at the extravagance of what this money was used for. But I think equally painful is the way in which the provincial government sought to mark today with a so-called prayer service at the Tembisa Hospital, as if what had happened there is as a result of people not having faith and therefore needed faith to be brought back into the institution. which I think further demeans the work of somebody like Babita. But we must acknowledge the work of people like Jeff Weeks and the time spent putting together the work and the exposés that came in the different newspapers thereafter. So investigative journalists plus Babita and civil society who have championed this kind of work for the last few years must take some degree of comfort that we see some action today.
And final question, do you get the sense then, Neeshan, that real work is being done to prevent a repeat of what happened at Tembisa Hospital, to prevent a situation like what happened with Babita Jokran, a government employee who did the right thing, but the reward was murder, basically?
Well, at the launch of the SIU report, the Premier of Gauteng, Premier Panyaza Lesufi, was very explicit when he said that what has happened at Tembisa has been replicated at many other health institutions in the province. And that is worrying. And if that is the case, then I think the problem of Tembisa is really much more bigger across the province and perhaps across the country.
Neeshan Balton, good to talk to you, Executive Director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. We'll leave it there with you for now.